Joining me now to unpack all of this and get us started on a Sunday is Rina Shah. She's a Republican political strategist and the founder of Relax Strategies, as well as my friend Steve Bannon. He's also a producer for The Rachel Maddow Show, editor of the Maddow blog on MSNBC.com, and an MSNBC political contributor. He's also the author of multiple books, including Ministry of Truth, Democracy, Reality, and the Republicans. Good to have you both with me here on a Sunday. Steve, let's look at the future Senate confirmation hearings. Who has the biggest uphill battle? And conversely, of the high-profile picks, who are you expecting to have the easiest road going forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's important to keep in mind that if there are 4 Republicans in this Senate who balk, as they did with Matt Gaetz, then these nominees are going to fail, despite the fact that there's a Republican majority in the chamber. And so with your question in mind, Charles, I think Pete Hegseth is probably the most controversial of this elections, in addition to maybe RFK Jr. They face uphill challenges. There's a lot of resistance, a lot of skepticism on Capitol Hill, even among many Republicans. And so with that in mind, I think that they are going to be having to confront very challenging confirmation hearings because of the scandals, because of the lack of qualifications. I think they're going to face a lot of skepticism. Having said that, there's going to be, given the fact that there's a Republican majority in the Senate, I can name a dozen other controversial picks that are going to have probably very smooth sailing through the Senate because of the partisan affiliation and because of the GOP majority.
You know, Steve, one of the things that makes me think about is the old saying of measure twice, cut once, take your time when it comes to doing things. And when it comes to the speed at which we've seen some of these picks be made, Rina, this is faster than what we are typically used to, and certainly faster than what the Biden administration did in terms of announcing its cabinet picks. What do you make of that as we head into this second term of Donald Trump in office?
The pace of these cabinet pick announcements is definitely aggressive, but I don't think it's consequential. I mean, they are certainly people that in so many ways do not have the experience to do the job, but it's not unlike the last time Trump was in the White House. He was also picking people that didn't quite have the resumes that most people would consider appropriate for leading such agencies. In particular, I'm most concerned about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. because of his controversial statements about science. When we talk about facts, there can be no alternative facts. For Trump's legacy to land this time, I think he ought to know that. And I think there's a little bit of showing that he gets that in some ways. He has shown that he can be malleable to the moment, right? And I want to go a little bit deeper and explain that for a moment. Malleable to the moment means he's not picking the exact type of loyalists he picked last time. He is really having the pressure of the private sector. In so many ways, what we see by seeing tech leaders lead and people, again, with private sector resumes that are so long and exhaustive in manners that we are not used to, he's trying to say that I can do it differently this time. So in some sense, I'm cutting him a little bit of a break. I'm being a little bit more hopeful than I've traditionally been about who Trump is choosing to have by his side. To me, the most problematic are Hegseth and Kash Patel. I mean, though I may feel some kind of way about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the sentiment around Washington has been that he is somebody that's getting more of a warmer reception than was expected on the Senate side. But Patel is been known as not just a rebel rouser. He's known as somebody that cannot play well with others and is very vindictive. And I think that's going to be problematic as again, the nomination process and these hearings start to approach. We will hear more from these people, and we should listen closely.
Steve, we talk a lot about some of the more controversial choices that Donald Trump has made for cabinet, primarily because of the things that they've said, the rhetoric. That's why you hear about them, the ones that have had challenges and problems. But is there anyone who represents some level of balance in terms of they're qualified, they're relatively sane, they're normal, and they should move forward? Because these are the picks that we're not hearing about. And without that, the picture that the public is going to have is that everyone that Donald Trump has selected for his cabinet is deeply embroiled in controversy and has lots of problems. Who is the person, or who are the people that are qualified and should sail through without a problem because they are justifiably chosen for these positions?
Charles, I wish I could answer that question with a long list of folks who've been thoroughly vetted, who have been who are absolutely qualified, who can expect to have near universal support in the Senate, with dozens of Democrats rallying behind them because of their obvious qualifications. And you know what? I can't, because the answer is zero. I can't think of a single Republican official that Donald Trump has picked for a key position of authority who has actually a deep resume and actually deep qualifications, who can expect full support in the Senate. You know, traditionally, we've seen Senate confirmations for cabinet posts possibly getting unanimous votes. This is not uncommon in modern American history. That is not going to happen this time. Donald Trump has not picked anyone who I think can expect clear sailing, smooth sailing throughout the Senate right now.
But Steve, the appointments that Donald Trump as president will make don't just end at the cabinet. They extend to the judiciary, for example. Is this a sign that we could be looking at Donald Trump potentially appointing judges who may not necessarily have the best qualifications going forward as he fills out the judiciary as well?
Absolutely. You know, in his first term, there were a great many judicial nominees who were picked because they were young and they were backed by the Heritage Foundation, sometimes as young as in the late 30s, early 40s, despite the fact that they weren't necessarily qualified, despite the fact that they didn't even necessarily have courtroom experience. The American Bar Association gave not qualified ratings to a variety of these nominees, and yet Senate Republicans confirmed them anyway. My expectation is we're going to see more of the same in the second term. In fact, I think in all likelihood, it will be even worse.
Rina, let's go to day one. Donald Trump has made a bunch of promises, including a big move on immigration and deportation, claiming that he's going to have the largest deportation that this country has ever seen. How do any of these picks that Donald Trump has made regarding his cabinet and what he wants to do help advance the execution of not just his goals around immigration and deportation, but his entire agenda?
Well, I'm looking at three women with a lot of hope and promise. And look, we may not like them on a personal level because they've bowed at the altar of Trump, and some of them have done these 180s that frankly feel more like they belong in the gymnastics portion of the Olympics. I mean, I'm talking about the pick for UN Ambassador Elise Stefanik, the congresswoman from New York. Then I'm looking at Pam Bondi for Attorney General, and then also Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence. I mean, these three women right there represent a trifecta of execution quickly, swiftly, whatever we want to call it, efficiently even. And they understand how to pull the levers of government. Pam Bondi has a really solid resume from Florida, and that is why she was brought up quickly to replace Gates. Bondi has also, let me remind the audience, been somebody that's been applauded by Jeb Bush. So establishment Republicans even like her. Stefanik is a little different, but her worldview will help Trump, and she is younger. She's a millennial like me. I've watched her rise entirely. And Tulsi Gabbard, let's just not forget, though she's done problematic things in the past, like meeting Bashar al-Assad and Putin seeming to embrace him in many ways, she is being seen as somebody who is a lightning rod and has this experience in our armed forces that can do her good as she's starting to look at how we view intelligence. Now, I think, or what the role rather is of a director of national intelligence as well. Her being a former Democrat also adds fuel to the fire that Trump loves. These are again, three women I'm looking at to really be front and center in this next administration of Trump's.
That was Rina Shah and Steve Bennett. Thank you both for getting us started on a Sunday morning.